so many. You would just never know if you didn't take the extra time to go and look.
Yeah.
And maybe that building would be leveled and no one
So
would
like
know.
a little simple florist has this great history that she was able to find by going to City Hall and digging around.
That's good. It's like detective work.
Mm-hmm, it is. It really is.
For sure. Yeah, and that's at the magazine I do a lot of that, digging around in old building files and trying to reach out to people that were involved with stuff and.
That might be why we like it. I worked in private investigation before. It really is just kind of a continuation of that.
Very cool.
I love that Adrienne was a PI. That she still will stake out a building and wait for an owner to show up. Or she'll still
stake out.
Yeah.
My mom was actually a welfare investigator in the early 70s in San Diego when I was a little kid, and she still is like ruthless on the internet. If I dare mention that I'm trying to see a woman, I try never to mention the names anymore because she will Google and she will find out shocking things about them.
Oh, God.
And there was a woman I thought was 35 that I was trying to hang out with, and she's like, she's 52. I was like, no! Anyways, so I want to make sure we have about 15 minutes. So I want to ask a broad issue question, then a couple specific things if we have time left. How do you feel about the state of preservation in general now? Like, are more people paying attention and caring about this, or is it getting worse?
Well, I think that it's there's a lot more people doing it now than there certainly were when I started out. It sort of mirrors the environmental movement in a way, in that it started out very grassroots and very small, and has turned into like an industry. I mean, the LA Conservancy is the largest preservation group in the country, and we have, this is surprising, but we had a preservation law here before they had one in Boston or in New York.
Wow.
Ours goes back to like 1963, 62, the Cultural Heritage Commission, and we have over 1,000 buildings on the register, on the historic cultural monument list, and there's all these great incentives now that didn't used to exist, like the Mills Act, where you can get like up to a 70% tax rebate
credit
if you have a home that's registered.
Our home is on the Mills Act. It's a full 70% discount every year on our taxes.
Wow.
And we maintain the home as it would have appeared in 1963.
Wow. Party at her house.
Exactly. Come on
Adrienne,
over.
by the way, Adrienne landmarked her neighborhood, and it's a spectacular neighborhood. And I mean, in her neighborhood, the type of houses that she lives in generates so much interest, and there's like bidding wars for them, and there's very few of them. But they have their own magazine.
What type of house do you live in?
Eichler Home.
Pardon?
Eichler's, they're called.
Yeah,
It sounds strangely Nazi and awful. We just broke 15.
The Eichlers
for Hollywood Heritage.
are very popular in the Bay Area. There's thousands of them up there, but there's only a couple hundred down here in the Valley and in Orange. But I mean, they have and they're actually building replica Eichlers now
In Palm Springs.
Yeah. So you can get a fake version of Adrienne's house in Palm Springs. You
It's
can
an
read about
entire
this magazine.
cult. It's
totally
amazing.
a cult.
Oh,
yeah.
And we have filming constantly in our neighborhood.
yeah? Oh, cool.
CSI's filmed there. I mean, Windex commercial, all sorts of
Because your
things.
house is all made out of glass.
Right, and it's on a nice level street,
Oh, sure.
the main street that we have filming on. But it's kind of a back lot, which residents aren't necessarily so happy about that.
Well, sure.
But they're very popular.
Well, I mean, I think that also that speaks to the mid-century stuff that we specialize in becoming so popular that, I mean, everybody wants to live in a modern house. Everybody wants your house. Everybody wants to live in a glass box.
Everybody wants to live in a glass box.
Yeah, and it
everybody's-
certainly wasn't that way.
Wait,
when we
that's
started
what
doing
your
it.
house is like? Is like one of those glass box types? Or what? No,
The
no.
whole,
What
the whole rear
Yeah.
part of it is glass.
Like a terrarium?
Kind of like a terrarium. And in the
okay.
center,
So-
there's an atrium, which is like a terrarium. With glass.
do you feel
It's
like
very cool.
like the sun can make you feel like an ant under a magnifying glass in the summer or something?
Like an ant farm.
Or it must be a bitch like cleaning, right? Do you do windows?
That's why she
I
needs
try
plenty
not
of
to do
Windex.
those.
I guess she has to. That's awesome.
And actually filming, the Johnny's Boiler in Downey, that's now Bob's Big Boy, I mean, it continues its legacy of having tons of filming. I mean, Bob
Right.
Dylan had filmed there, Madonna. Now we organized a Mad Men shoot
They
there.
did a Mad Men
I mean,
there, yeah.
it's,
But
it's amazing.
why don't they restore the Johnny's at Wilshire and Fairfax and make it a restaurant now that it's
Well,
like
the thing
so
about the
picked up?
Johnny
We'd love
Wilson,
that.
it's the family. It's the Bernie Sanders generation of that family just wants to hold on to it. They have the means to do an eccentric thing like that, and they're hanging on to it. But mainly they're
but the
renting their
campaign's
parking.
over. What are they doing? Waiting for him to go in 2020?
He's got the parking lot. I understand the parking lot is rented to Metro for staging for the Purple Line. So when the Purple Line is
For
completed, staging where they have the trucks lined up and stuff.
But
So
filming is very lucrative.
they do a good deal
not
of
bad.
filming there still, yeah. And but I think that what will happen is once the Purple Line is finished in 2020, something like that.
Hopefully before the Olympics.
Yeah, once the Purple Line is finished, that will become a very attractive site for a project. And since it's a historic cultural monument, the project will likely wrap around the building and preserve it. And we might lose the Sizzler, or the Maranello School of Beauty, which was torn down recently.
We hardly knew ye.
Yeah. There's the big thing about preservation is there's a lot of ugly buildings to tear down. Get to those first, and then deal with the nice ones.
Pick our battles.
Yeah.
How do you feel about all the theaters and stuff downtown? Because that's something that it's worth addressing. I think, specifically like on Broadway and stuff, you walk down, there's the marquee every 10 feet.
I love with the Broadway theaters, and
So
and
cool.
Whenever I travel, I tour the theaters and I look for the theaters. By the way, that was like the number one thing on this big grant that was given away last week. That with the Formosa one, everybody that has a historic theater wanted to build a marquee or wanted to restore their theater. I mean, how can you not love those great, beautiful Broadway theaters? And they do all kinds of programming now, which is really great. There's a
really? I thought they were only used for last remaining theaters.
I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, but Cinespia.
Oh, yeah.
They do a thing at the Los Angeles pretty regularly. Always fills up, always sells out. They do Night on Broadway every year that gets over 100,000 people.
Bringing back Broadway.
That's so fun. It's in January.
Okay.
It's really
Night
great.
on Broadway. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then you get theaters like the Orpheum and the Regent, where
Orpheum's
they're
got
doing
music acts.
concerts.
Constantly, yeah.
That's true.
And there's a rumor that won't go away that Apple wants the Tower Theater at 7th and Broadway. They've signed a lease. It's going to happen.
Just to make a damn store.
For a store, yeah, the Tower.
Oh, how exciting!
The Tower was always a weird theater. It was called a newsreel theater, where you would drop in and watch the news for 15 minutes and then be on your way.
or probably watch other things that you only need 15 minutes at most.
Well, I was going to say, nowadays with a lot of the news, it's still a jerk-off theater.
Oh, that's awful.
Oh.
So
You might need a double one.
Yeah. Oh,
Still
you're
awful.
breaking me. Chris, you haven't hit the bell yet, have you?
Oh,
That's $20. God damn you!
I wanted to give a shout out to the Museum of Neon Art.
I'm
We have
sorry.
great Broadway tours,
Okay.
neon bus tours on the double-decker bus.
Oh, awesome.
those are so cool.
I
I've
love
done
that.
I really love those.
How far do they go? Because I've just been to the museum and I was like, it's kind of small. I wish it was bigger, but the tour, I want to do that.
Hop on the bus and go up and down Broadway, and you get to see
When is
all
it?
the time. You can check out the schedule online.
Get me on free since I promoted it here.
What I love about that tour, other than the hosts who
What are
are
you doing with my
wild
host?
people, you're actually up so high that you're like right in front of it. It's like it's in your face,
That's
And it's a totally different experience to be like right next to this glowing
Dude.
behemoth, right there. And you're
There are holiday tours coming up.
Oh my God! You gotta let me go.
You gotta do that tour. It's really
You
fun.
reminded me of something that I have a horrible trigger story in a second, but a positive story that I just remember. This is quick. Was when I was in Chicago, I worked in a building. There was an Equitable building right along the Michigan Avenue and along the Chicago River, and they had a big parade with fireworks going off around Christmas. And so I was on the 21st floor, and I went up there with a date and doubled up with my friend Scott Vinci, who's still my best friend to this day here. And we doubled up with our girlfriends, and we went to the 21st floor. We ran over to the window to look down at the fireworks. I had no idea the fireworks popped off exactly at 21 stories. It was amazing.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Wow.
But it was deafening and blinding. And then my mom called right while I was in the middle of it, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, and I was like, "We're in my office." And she goes, "It sounds like a war zone." I'm like, "Yeah, there's fireworks literally popping in front of my face, like and all the sparks like flying off the glass." It was
Incredible.
amazing.
I'm
Imagine
going
all that
blind, Mom.
sealed
I'm going
sealed
blind.
glass.
Wow. Yeah, it's like not because of what I did in high school either. So anyway, so that is awful. Oh, come on. Anyway, so but I want to see. Can you guys go possibly a couple minutes over or no? What do we got? 5? Oh man, because I want to see if either of you has a horrible story to match. I have to tell this thing. When I was at the Chicago Tribune, I worked there briefly in '99, and it was all going great. I was doing all these quirky stories like what Chris does here. And I thought I was on top of the world, and then but I had to do obits randomly because
I used to write obits.
Yeah, so this one time they come up to me at like right before 5. I was ready to go home. I was already exhausted. Like, you have to stick around and do this obit. And it was some guy had died who was a big history preservationist, right? But the thing is, they said you have to reach a family member. So I'm sitting there bored out of my mind, 3 hours waiting for somebody to reach me from the family, right? And so they gave me a list of questions, and we'll make it easy. Read this. And so one of the questions was, he was such a fan that he conveyed the house of the person who was the sculptor of all the weird statues in Savannah, Georgia. Those the Garden of Good and Evil kind of thing. And so they said he conveyed that house to an arts group in Lake Forest, which is a suburb of Chicago. I thought it meant that he picked up the house somehow, paid for it, and moved it on a trailer from Savannah, Georgia, all the way to Lake Forest, Illinois. So I put that in there. He was even such a preservationist. And then the next day, that night, the proofreader goes, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, conveyed. What else could it mean? Come on, I got to go home." And so they put it in there. I show up at my desk. The publisher of the Tribune is waiting for me, along with all the editors. They're like, "What happened? What the hell are you thinking?" I'm like, "What?" And they said that obituary, it's such a disaster. We're actually going to run it again tomorrow with an X through it, and the obituary editor is going to write a correct one.
We're going to resurrect him and kill him again,
I know,
just so
right?
we can get the obit
And it was
right.
just because that one fact, and what they said, no, it meant he legally gave the paperwork over to the group. And I was like, "Oh, the conveyed means that?" They're like, "Yes, you moron." And so, so they were that upset. It was the personal lawyer of the publisher.
Then the skipper hit you with his hat.
Yeah.
People
so
wonder
I lost
why
my job at the Tribune because of that later.
people wonder why print media is dying. Jeez.
I know. Kozlowski. Yeah.
I remember trying to save a sign once, and I was on top of a bowling alley, and it was raining, and I was the ballast. They tied I'm a large guy.
What?
They tied one end of the rope to the neon sign and one end of the rope around my waist, and they had me walk towards the edge of the building with the sign. So I was like a human crane, and I was walking the sign down, and it was raining, and they were halfway through demolishing this building. And I fell through the roof.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah.
No.
And I landed between my legs. My legs went through, but yeah.
I was like, what hit between your legs?
That was a horrible thing. It happened in preservation.
Actually, and speaking of horrible stories, Chris and I were working to save the Southwest Ball.
What's
when
that?
we turned in, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
turned into
Southwest
the
ball or bowl?
A bowl, another Googie bowling alley down in South LA, and we tuned into this TV show called Human Wrecking Balls, and the episode was all about them destroying things with their bodies. So they would just run into walls and they would fall over.
How have I never heard of this?
the Pumphrey Brothers Human Wrecking
Yeah.
Ball.
I'm Googling that.
And then
they were destroying this
Again, I'm
wonderful
visualizing
building.
you as
Awful.
naked Miley Cyrus.
Oh.
That's awful.
they took the sign and they
Hey.
threw it through the plate
Aw.
glass window of the beautiful Googie bowling alley.
Is there a part
We
of you
couldn't believe it.
Can you feel like physical pain when you see stuff like
We
that
did.
happen? You
Oh, I
cringe.
still feel
But we
it.
actually felt physical pain, and we're like quickly, like,
Oh, no.
we're on the phone, like, let's talk to the National Trust, and then we're like, save these plays. It's just crazy. Actually, because it's running through your bloodstream.
Yeah.
You just become so passionate
Oh,
about
we live
it.
it.
But I'm glad for that passion.
Yeah.
I think it has caused other agencies to form, like the Downey Conservancy. After the success of Johnny's Broiler, it formed, and then I want to give a shout out to We Are the Next. They worked on the Taco Bell. There's so many great organizations now.
All right. Well, where can people find out more about each of you and more about, like, what do you recommend if there's one group that people should join?
I guess you can find me at lamag.com, and where I write about this stuff, and you can pick up the print edition of Los Angeles Magazine and then in your local grocer.
Preserve
The current
print.
issue is Disneyland, which
Yes.
is another one of my favorite topics.
We'll have you back for that one.
Yeah, I have a book
We
coming
should
out
go
in
to
April.
Disneyland together, Chris.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay.
And Adrienne, you can find her on Amazon, I guess, right?
Sure, on Amazon, you can look up our books, and also I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Adrienne Biondo.
Oh, and I'm on Twitter at Chris Nichols LA.
Ooh, okay.
Now, if both of you want to do like a quick 5-minute stand-up set, I think we're ready.
Yeah.
The